What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jayden. That's right, we are back after a little bit of a hiatus. Not to steal Tyler's word, but that's just the word. And he doesn't have a patent on it or anything. A little bit of a break between uh, nationals, or I did the Israel's Inheritance box opening, the box that I got from nationals. I did a live stream with that. If you haven't seen that, I'll put the link down in the description. You can go check that out. Opening the new cards. Great time that I had with John Hendricks and the times that he was, with me up to speed. He was having a little bit of internet issues, but his audio came through just fine for the most part. So anyway, that is available if you guys haven't seen that now. But I am going to be doing a overview of my nationals, the decks that I played, the places that I got with them, and just overall kind of recap of the weekend. And this is all sort of in prep for hopefully the new cards will be available on Lackey next week. We can start building decks and start exploring the new themes with the new cards. And I know people are really excited about that, to the point where some of them were already trying to figure out how to get the images that people had taken of the actual cards on a Lackey, and that was uh, not really the best, I guess, or not the way that they wanted this officially distributed and whatever. So no more bootleg Lackey as it was being called. Hopefully by this time next week, we will have the official plugin released and available for people. But although I can't make any guarantees on that yet. It is just about ready to go and ready to release. But I don't want to promise anything that might not come true. But fingers crossed. Let's hope. So, anyways, that will be exciting. Looking forward to that. For now, we've got the regular Lackey plugin, because pretty much everything that you're going to see here with the decks that I was playing is going to be from, not Israel's Inheritance. Although, of course, sealed deck, we did use a couple Israel's Inheritance, or we used one Israel's Inheritance pack as part of the pool that we were opening cards from. So there are some cards in there that you just won't see in the deck when I show it. But as you can see, you might remember from 6 months ago now, I guess. That's how long it's been since the belt has been missing. And you might remember the video that I made afterwards. I believe it was the Posties getting out of hand, where it was the Posties Patriarchs deck, where it was kind of the hand control. That was the video that I did, or the first one after Mr. Classic, and the belt went missing, and I had a little bit of a dilemma what to do with the space on my shelf back here. And one of the options I gave myself was motivation to fill that space with the belt, or to go to nationals and bring back some plaques to fill up the space. So nationals did go fairly well. I guess it worked, and I was able to bring back the three plaques that you see back here. Two of them from Type 2, which is, I'm just going to go in order of the days and the events, how they went, or what event I played on each day, I should say, and what I played. So the Type 2 deck that you see before you, and I'll put timestamps in the description of where I start talking about each one. So if you wanted to skip right to Type 1 because you're not a Type 2 player, then you should feel ashamed and you should sit through this anyway. No, I'm just kidding. Type 2 is great, but if you want to just skip through to Type 1 because you're not as interested in Type 2, feel free to go to the description, click the timestamp, and hop to that. Or you like sealed deck and you want to see the deck that I ended up with that, because that's where the third black came from. So all right, the Type 2 deck that you see before you is probably familiar if you've stayed up to date with some of my tournament recaps from this past season. Both the Kentucky State and Minnesota State tournaments, I played this deck, or kind of a variation of it. It's one that I've been tweaking and tuning since Kentucky State. Was kind of the first time that I had put the deck together, and realized that, okay, this deck feels really good. I gave both Tyler and Jeremy uh, taught them a lesson, as they say. I don't know. It was a. Uh, I think I was not really ready or expecting, I guess, this deck to just perform as well as it did, and of course they were testing some things out early in the season too, so I wasn't taking it as too much of a like, oh, this deck is overpowered or whatever, but it was just enough for me to be like, okay, there's something here, and I want to flesh this out, keep working on this deck and see where it takes me. And so later in the season, as I went to Southeast regionals down in Alabama, and was able to test it against Jeremy again, kind of tweaking a few things, and Jeremy being a little bit more prepared for what I was doing with the Nazareth stuff. He was able to give me more of a fight. Ended up winning the game that we played in for the tournament. So he got first at the that regional tournament. I ended up in second, and then we also did play a fun game afterwards that was way beyond the time limit. We weren't really keeping track of time, but I was able to sneak away with the win on that one, and that was a very grindy game. Really one of the best, I mean, like most fun Type 2 games that I have played in a while, definitely this season. And so I realized kind of through that, and also through some testing with our Minnesota State tournament, that I was able to win against Nathan Voigt and my brother Justin. It just kind of taught me or showed me a few things that, okay, I need to really hone in more on this aspect, and not as much on some of the other stuff. Like, for instance, previously I had Deceitful Sin on the defense. That's the one that if it's a 1/3 Crimson Enhancement. If you haven't used a search ability, this turn, end the battle. It's not end the battle into stalemate. It's just end the battle. So you do actually have to pay attention to the numbers. My thinking was that it would actually, that it would work pretty well now that we have Mask of Vanity from Roots. And since it's a Nazareth deck, I'm not going to be planning to do any searching really anyways. So it seemed like the best fit. But overall, just didn't really feel like it typically worked, and I just wanted to focus more on the enhancements that I was getting more use out of, but didn't have as many copies of. So the main thing that I added was to go up to 4 copies of Purloin. Not that the enhancement itself is particularly good. It is good. Like, you're not, it's an interrupt, and it's a battle winner, and it works on pretty much my entire defense. It only works on the thieves, which we got Sapphira, but otherwise it works on everybody else. And you get to take a card, so it's potential for battle winner, good for special initiative, and also just utility grabber. Can kind of chump block just to take out some annoying fortress or something that they have, and use it against your opponent if the situation permits. You can take a 3 woes from their territory, something like that. So there's definitely some flexibility to it, but it is negatable and all that. The main reason that I wanted to go up to 4 of them, though, is that star ability. With a Type 2 game, there's so much back and forth, and there's a lot of potential for momentum swings. And this star ability is one of the things that can really kind of bring about those momentum swings where they just have a storehouse or something that's protecting their hand or deck, and it's stopping me from doing something, or they have some other counter down. They have negate neutrals character down, a hero or just an artifact that's preventing me from doing something. And this star ability is very difficult to interact with, or like it's you can protect characters from it with certain fortresses or whatever, but for the most part, this is it's so broad. Take a card, accept a dominant. So if they're their characters are protected by like a Herod's Temple or something, I can take the Herod's Temple, utilize that, and so I think the flexibility on that is just so good, especially in Type 2, where it's kind of you're playing the long game, and you can have up to 4 copies of Purloin. So you're likely to hit at least 1 or 2 throughout the game, and it's right at the beginning of your turn, so you can really make the most out of it. Just kind of take the card. Okay, this is stopping me from gaining momentum in this moment. So now I'm going to take it and then use my rescue or my artifact, territory class, all that kind of stuff to pick that momentum back up. And the other enhancement that I actually like, I mean, really since GOC came out, I was like, I never really looked too closely at Stolen Treasures, which it's not particularly good, especially in Type 1. But I think in Type 2, it actually that's kind of its place to shine, where so you can take and or activate an artifact from an artifact pile or a reserve. So if you have the information on, they have this artifact in their artifact pile or in their reserve, which, over the course of a Type 2 game, you probably will get that at some point, especially if you have star abilities like the Enunciation, where you can look at your opponent's reserve. And in this deck, I've got Star of Bethlehem, so I can use that if I don't want to look at their hand, whatever, or I have some other way to see their hand, like Condemned Thief or something. So, anyways, this is just like that first part is kind of nice utility, but then if you do not, you may reveal a card you do not own from hand to end the battle in a stalemate. So this was really the the Deceitful Sin alternative, I guess, or kind of replacement, where there's so many cases where with a Thief's defense like this, especially in Type 2, where you are going to have a card that your opponent owns, that or you just have it in your hand because of the Purloin, or because most often because of Condemned Thief. And so this is just going to be easy enough to pull off, or to activate, or to trigger, or whatever, where it's almost like an unsuccessful, like it's fairly bad on the first turn, which is not a great sign for it. But in Type 2, that's a lot less important than in Type 1. So that was why I went up to 3 copies of Stolen Treasures, and then I also had 1 in reserve. I think if I were to change anything with the defense, it would actually be to cut 1 of the copies of Stolen Treasures and probably Sapphira, and then run 2 copies of Possessing Demon instead. That was something that Tyler was doing. His defense was fairly similar, but he was running the Gospel of Unity with Possessing Demon and a couple of Sorted Spirits, I think. So it was really more geared towards dealing with opposing Nazareths, or and other things as well. I mean, Nazareth, Bethlehem Stable, those are both things that a thief's defense, or a thief defense is going to want to deal with, or at least be able to kind of control more. Obviously, Nazareth is symmetrical, so my defense is kind of built to function with it. And actually, that part of it works fairly well, although it does kind of nombo with Stolen Treasures if I do want to activate an artifact from my reserve. Just quick peek at the reserve here. I've got Madness. That is pretty much the only option in my own reserve, which is actually fine, because it goes back to reserve, assuming that it actually goes through. And then everything else, like in most cases, like 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be using this as a end the battle in a stalemate. I'm not usually going to be going to my reserve for Madness, and I think maybe I did it once throughout the day, like if even, I don't know. I hardly touched my reserve, which is really what a Nazareth deck is looking to do. You're going to see that in my Type 1 deck as well. That was kind of the same thing. There were definitely situations where I was too eager to get my Nazareth down, where my opponent had some way of protecting their hand or their deck and their reserve, to the point where or like with Bethlehem Stable or something like that, to the point where it didn't really make sense for me to put down Nazareth because it was only going to be limiting myself and not my opponent. And then usually ended up doing it anyway, and then maybe regretting it. But it did actually kind of help me out in one case, as I'll talk about as I kind of talk about uh, the the gameplay. So um, just going through the offense, this pretty much stayed the same after, or I guess from the version that I played in um, at Southeast Regionals against Jeremy, and I kind of talked about that in a video, I believe. So yeah, I don't think there's really anything to talk about there. Like from the original version of the deck, I did go down, or like I cut Michael Chief Prince. So now I was completely New Testament Unity, or I cut Michael Chief Prince and Captain of the Host. So I was completely New Testament Unity because I wanted to be able to use his sacrifice, which was kind of the one of the key ways to deal with, or I guess to answer my opponent's answers to Nazareth, which was often going to be three woes. Um, there are maybe a few other cases as well where it's like an evil enhancement or something that's dealing with Nazareth. But yeah, his sacrifice was just a good option. Plus, I was expecting people to be playing demons, and so that's just good against them. Also, just a good option for Michael, especially if you have swift beings to interrupt. Then you play his sacrifice on Michael, and then you just get rid of everything. So a very flexible card, and it's kind of the one Matthew vulnerability, but it's not in a 100 card deck. Not quite as worried about that. Ark of the Covenant was kind of the other addition to counteract the Nazareth counters. Take out the Shipwreck and Three Woes as an option. Obviously, the Cross does that as well, but Ark of the Covenant just does that a little more cleanly, I guess, because I can still use my good dominance, which I have quite a few of to use, and Ark of the Covenant also kind of works well with Michael and Strong Angel. I don't think I actually got any triggers from them. I might have. I think there was one time where I missed a trigger on it, and I was a little bit disappointed. But I guess the main thing. Okay, yeah, this is one thing that did change between, or that changed before Nationals in the offense was including Guardians from Glory. I just like completely had forgotten that Guardians from Glory. Like I was kind of bummed because I had I just didn't think there were any ways to get Nazareth out of reserve cleanly for an Angel offense. So to the point where one version of the deck had Faith as a mustard seed in reserve, so that I could get it out with New Covenant and then play it to take Nazareth from my reserve because I put an extra copy in there. And I was looking for ways to deal with or to get a little bit more like Lost Soul protection if I was worried about like DOU or Swine Stampede. And then I was like, oh yeah, Guardians from Glory protects Lost Souls from evil cards. And I was like, wait, you can take a good gospel card from reserve. Oh, okay. So so then I could have a Nazareth and an extra Chamber of Angels in reserve instead of trying to put two in the deck and just, or like one in reserve that I could like access very like on very fringe circumstances and also not repeatedly, or like I couldn't get both Nazareth and Chamber from reserve. And like this isn't the most consistent way to do it. Like it's one copy of Guardians from Glory. Maybe it would have been worth it to get a second one in there, but this was I just kind of decided, all right, let's just put in one. I've got a few ways to get out the right heroes that I need. Well, actually, maybe I cut most of those, like Angel Appears and Angelic Guidance and stuff, just because I'm not really searching. But the deck I felt like was fast enough to where if I needed it, I could probably find a way to Guardians from Glory, or would just get there somehow. Crowd's choice. I don't know. So I felt like one was probably okay because the situations that I really needed to get out the second Nazareth were probably few and far between. So yeah, Guardians from Glory was in a very obvious include that I just hadn't thought of. until shortly before nationals, and that fit right in. I don't remember what exactly got cut for it, but that was the main change to the offense. Pretty much everything else with the deck stayed the same. Let's go back to the reserve here and look at that. But yeah, that was. I guess the other thing with Madness is that you can play it on as an enhancement with Den of Thieves, so that was a possibility. I can get it out with Wages, so that's kind of why I went with Madness over something else, or like one of the other ones that reserved itself. And um, so yeah, also could play it on Suicidal Swine Stampede in a pinch. But yeah, not much in the reserve really got touched throughout the day. I don't even know if I used the Coming Prince at all to recur my Star of Bethlehem. No, this is going to be super big, but anyways, so my round one opponent was Charles Johnson. Got it paired up against him. He was using a like a Ruth White offense, kind of centered around David and just some of the other Ruth stuff. I got my Nazareth out fairly early and was able to just stop him from searching, which is a lot of what the Ruth like White offense wants to do. So many like Love Righteousness, David himself, David's Harp, Gleaning the Fields, all those cards that are kind of built to search and get things set up. He was running Music Leader too and some music enhancements, to where and I just got Nazareth at the right time, or he didn't have a way to deal with it. That kind of got me to get far enough ahead where once he did kind of start to find some answers to Nazareth, it was just a little bit too late. I ended up winning that game 7-1. So that was my defense held up fairly well. He did actually get once he did get to David to search, he just went for the kind of guaranteed one because he just wasn't able to gather the resources to push one through. So he searched for the new Old Testament Son of God and got the one that way. So the decisive win there paired me up against Tyler, who had just beaten Jeremy 7-0. So I was a little bit nervous about how this game was going to go because I wasn't really sure what Tyler ended up deciding to play. And the fact that he beat Jeremy 7-0 in the first round was a little daunting, but that paired us up against each other. And this is the game that was almost a mirror match, but not quite. I think Tyler's deck was maybe a little more well refined, or like there were some maybe not as well refined, but maybe quite like built a little more cohesively, I guess, or like the themes were a little more cohesive, where he didn't lean as much into the angels. He did have I think he maybe had a copy of Nazareth, I'm not positive, but he was kind of more built on like kind of gospel, like a little bit of Empty Tomb, a little bit of Nativity, and the angels. So running Mary, Mary Holy Virgin, and Mary the Restored, some other the gospel or like Empty Tomb stuff, John the Fisherman, just kind of like gospel good stuff, but the type 2 version, which is not as focused on the Matthew, the disciples, like Simon, that kind of stuff. I think where it can really make more use out of the multiple copies of Resurrection Revealer and some of the other synergies there. And so I think that offense is maybe a little bit better. It's debatable. Like, I mean, I think out of 10 games, I think our wins our wins against each other would probably be about like 50-50, just like the decks as they are. Well, the decks as they are, like with no, I don't know. I would maybe give the edge to Tyler, to Tyler's deck, just like, 60-40 or something like that. We'll just put it at that. I don't know. But it's all hypothetical, but just kind of like based on the deck, I think his was a little bit more suited for the matchup. It was definitely a back and forth game where I kind of crept up or got a little bit of a lead, a head start. I think I was up maybe 4-1 or 4, could have even been 4-0 at some point. I think it was just 4-1. But Tyler was able to kind of stabilize, start fending off my attacks, kind of just getting some I guess unfortunate for me blocks that were just I didn't have the right tools for, answers for, and then he kind of crept back into the game, got his dominance, and this is where the protection of or where me putting down Nazareth into a Bethlehem stable actually worked out in my favor because Tyler made the misplay that he will likely never do again. Hopefully. So plug your ears now, Tyler, if you don't want to rehear it. But Nazareth says protect decks, discard piles, and reserves from look and search abilities. And Tyler went, or he kind of was like, oh yeah, I'm protected by Bethlehem Stable. Played Second Coming, tried to go to his discard pile for Son of God. It's not able to because his discard pile is protected by Nazareth, where it's not protected by Bethlehem Stable. So that's something you got to watch out for. I know I mentioned this in the previous video as well. I think, or the box opening video. I think I brought it up just as kind of a little like Nationals recap sort of thing. But I figured it was definitely worth mentioning again in case you missed that, and also because I'm talking about the deck and the games and all that. So I ended up winning that game, a very tight 4-3, and that was ultimately came down to be the deciding factor because that was the only game that Tyler lost. The rest of his games were all full wins, and it was one of my 2 timeout wins, which means that we both ended up with the same exact game score. We both ended up with the same loss-hold differential, and which I guess doesn't really matter because the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. Since we did play and I took the win, then that put me in first place. So my third game was against Joe Roberts, who he was playing a deck that it's definitely scary if you're not ready for it, and I'm not sure I could say that I was really ready for it, but I did just have kind of a few, I guess, aspects of the game that just kind of ended up going in my favor. But it started off pretty shaky where I made a fairly suboptimal first rescue. I didn't have any ways to get to Nazareth or Resurrection or kind of the things that I want to get set up as early as possible, and so I was just coming out and hoping for the best, and he managed to pull off the accumulator choked seed play where he was able to draw 10 cards and just kind of refill, or I mean not even refill, just fill his resources and start getting his offense rolling. He was playing a red Warriors offense that I think he was running 3 copies of Benaya in the main deck and 1 copy in reserve, just to make sure that he's got his banding chain and he's got Benaya and the Cross, Coliseum, all that to shut you down. If you're not prepared for that, then that can easily just walk in turn after turn without him really needing to expend too many resources. He had some tricks with the weapons and kind of reusing those well and wisely. But unfortunately for him, he just even though he kind of got that early jump start, I was able to kind of have a few key plays go in my favor, and then just ended up kind of taking control of the game from there, and he wasn't able to recover. So I ended up winning that game 7-2. Which brings us then to round 4, which was against Jeremy Chambers, and Jeremy was playing a deck that was a little bit geared towards kind of answering what he expected people to be playing, including me, playing Nazareth, including Tyler, and kind of just having some I guess tricky plays that he would be able to utilize. I guess with the um, it was like a regular Disciples offense and then a Philistine defense, and just had some like Goliath's curse and just other ways to deal with. There are plenty of ways to deal with Nazareth and um, the other uh, I don't know, other tricks that he was expecting to see. But I think that he was kind of regretting it a little bit as it just didn't really come up the way that he expected. And me having a fairly good start, being able to get down in early Nazareth, just kind of shut down both his offense and his defense, and his draw was just abysmal to the point where he had like two of the exchanging angels and three Philistine armor bearers in his hand, and I had Nazareth down, and he had no answers for it, no way to get around it. So I was just kind of walking in. I ended up winning that game 7-0. And so I told Tyler I did it so that he didn't feel special for beating Jeremy 7-0, because it's not typically a an easy feat. Jeremy still ended up getting third place, so those were his two big. I mean his I believe his only two losses, and those ended up. He still ended up being able to edge out the rest of the competition. And then round 5 was another fairly tricky and a little bit scary game that was against Emmanuel, and it was definitely one that was determining of the outcome, because if I had even tied this game, if I had gotten any fewer points than I did, which was just the 2 points for the timeout win, then Tyler would have ended up with more points than me and would have taken first. But I was able to squeak out the timeout win against Emmanuel, who was running a Daniel kind of angel offense with a what do you call them? The rebellious Israelites wilderness defense. um, like a brown wilderness defense. A little bit of the kind of like gray Sabbath breakers in there, but not a whole lot on that. But basically, it was just built around getting overtaken, getting that trigger, and then just capitalizing on those CBN wilderness evil characters, which in type 2 is very brutal. Like it's very difficult to get through to answer. And I was fortunate to get a couple of early rescues and then just kind of be able to hold him off, because there was a certain point where I wasn't getting through unless I drew like just the perfect set of battle winners, or options, I guess, like ways to get to my reserve. But like it uh, like even with Zacchaeus, I've used him as a hero, and was hoping to just kind of be able to pick off some of his weaker evil characters. But there were just a few attacks that I didn't execute quite correctly in order to be able to do that. So like even with dominance and all that, it just it was very hard to answer. And so he ended up being able to hold me off for the most part. I was able to hold off his offense. He wasn't able to pull off the Faith Unbowed with a 40 years play that he was trying to get through. I was able to kind of keep him off of that, in part because of my salty and just other stopping him from searching, that kind of stuff. And so I ended up winning that game 4-2. So that was a very close one. That was like it felt like, or it was maybe not quite as close as the game with Tyler, just because it wasn't quite as back and forth, but it was more of just like I got a couple early rescues, and then we both were able to hold each other off for the most part for the rest of the game. And it was just kind of a it really revealed, I guess, the strength of Overtaken plus Wilderness as a type 2 defense. I just wasn't ready for that, wasn't expecting that. And so there were cards that I was like, wait, this guy does what? And like, you're making it CBN. And yeah, it's quite quite the formidable defense, I guess. So if you're looking at type 2 defenses, You can definitely look at Emmanuel's list if he is posted anywhere. I'm not sure if he has, but maybe he'll watch this and then post it somewhere, because it's a very cool deck. And of course, we're all going to be busy with Israel's Inheritance coming up soon here, but that is still something to play around with eventually, and it's going to remain competitive, I think. But yeah, not as competitive as Thieves. Yeah, I think that Thieves are a very good Type 2 defense. I'm really impressed with how this deck turned out and performed throughout the whole season. We'll keep it in mind, I guess, keep it in the back pocket as we go into this new season, and seeing how things with Israel's Inheritance shake out. Seems like Nazareth is going to be even trickier to keep on the table to protect from the opponent, especially with Joshua and his buddies running around. So that could be tricky. Might not be the way to go for this coming season, but we'll see how the Type 2 meta shakes out. It's always very interesting to see. So, all right, now we're going on to Type 1, the moment that we've all been waiting for. Type 1 was on Friday. We played 7 rounds of Swiss, and let's move me up a little bit here. Move me out of the way. 7 rounds of Swiss, and then we did Top Cut with the top 8 players. It was kind of fun how we ended up doing that with like the bracket, and people could fill those out and all that. So I appreciate everyone who put me on the to win in the bracket. Means a lot. I don't know who you all are, but if anyone did, shout out to you. And then unfortunately, I wasn't able to deliver on that. So I did not take it all with Type 1 here, but I was able to secure 3rd place, which I was fairly proud of. Not necessarily expecting going into the day, but you can ask anyone who was, well, most of the people who were at the Airbnb the night before. I had my deck out on the kitchen table or dining room table, and was just kind of sitting there staring at it for a while, just not really knowing what direction I wanted to go. I had a Angels Thieves deck that it was fairly similar to my Type 2, and that's a fairly telling sign of a Type 2 player. When you see their their Type 1 deck looks a lot like their Type 2, it's because they built their Type 2, they really like it, and then the Type 1 deck ends up looking more or less the same. It's not going to be the case for all decks, as like Emmanuel, he didn't run a wilderness defense in Type 1 just because it doesn't work quite as well, but Thieves are a little more formidable. And so I actually, as I was kind of staring at it, trying to decide, okay, do I play Nazareth or do I not? Do I, lean more into nativity, and kind of splash that, like the humans in there with the angels, and not just go mono silver? And all in all, this is what I ended up coming down to, and it was more or less actually more based on Tyler's Type 2 deck than my own, just because I really liked his inclusion of Mary the Restored. And I was thinking, well, in Type 1, you can only use 1 copy of Resurrection Revealer. So getting to, Resurrection, getting to Star of Bethlehem are a little more tricky. So having, Mary in there is just another way to get to that on turn 1. And also, get to using the Magi to get to Star of Bethlehem, and also be another unique nativity hero for Heavenly Host. And there were just a number of things where I was like, I think Mono Angels just probably won't get there. It won't be quite, fast or punchy enough, where I think I can utilize some of the other pieces here to kind of help set up more consistently, and also just have a little more staying power, in particular with like Mary Holy Virgin, just one of the best heroes in the game, hands down. And also answers things like High Priest Ananias, which as you can see, this offense doesn't like too much. I can get some stuff in reserve to kind of help answer, but there were just plenty of reasons I could see that this was the right direction to go, and I really just wanted to play Nazareth, so that was part of it as well, part of the decision process. So I ended up with mostly angels, but a little bit of nativity and I guess technically empty tomb splashed in with Mary and Peter. So it's hard to call it, like a nativity deck, an angel deck, or it's hard to give it, kind of a more specific brand, I guess. But I would probably just, for just generalizing, probably just go with nativity, nativity-ish or nativity-esque, I guess, because you got Star of Bethlehem, you got Heavenly Host, like it's majority nativity, or kind of leans in that direction, but doesn't necessarily need to be that. So anyway, that is the way I went, or the direction I went with the offense. And as we know, this was I took third place. This was the third best nativity deck in the field, at least from from the results by the end of it. I will say at the end of Swiss, it was the best nativity deck in the field. So just saying. But it definitely failed in comparison to the well-oiled machine that Tim had with his nativity deck, and Jake had with a similar deck. Although I only played against Tim, so. But I assume the result against Jake probably would have been similar with how their decks were built, very similarly. With the defense, it was kind of a similar sort of thing where like I had been waffling between a demon defense, a thief defense, and some combination of the two, doing like a demon thieves. I really wanted to. And I was also thinking about going Daniel with the offense. That was kind of the other thing. Like if I went Daniel, then I want to go Nazareth. So that was kind of the deck that I had started out with, was the Daniel Angels Demons. Now it's kind of coming back to me a little bit. But with the demons, I had the Roots Red Dragon and House Divided. I really wanted to play House Divided and just be able to kind of clean up against the GOC offenses and try to land that. I had a lot of difficulty actually landing it or pulling it off at Minnesota State, and I think I had identified a few ways in which maybe I could do it a little bit better. I was actually planning to play the Revelation of John Red Dragon because it didn't matter as much from what I could tell that it cannot be negated, as it didn't matter as much that it was cannot be negated as it did that it was like an answer to something. So my opponent had to have some way to deal with Red Dragon and the protection, and then get around that, and then I could play House Divided kind of in response to something. Whereas with the Roots Red Dragon, I just never had the opportunity to actually play something, because what they did was just unstoppable. It was a resurrection, band toss the next, bounce kind of thing. It was like, or Glory of the Lord, to where Glory of the Lord and resurrection, like they don't really work against the Revelation of John Red Dragon, because you have to interrupt or negate the protection first. So that was kind of some part of my thought process, and I was like, okay, I think maybe there's something here. But when I ended up going the Nazareth direction, I was like, I don't think the demons are going to quite cut it. I think I want to just go thieves, and I think I do want the little bit of a demon splash with the possessing spirit, sordid spirit. I guess I said possessing demon earlier, but possessing spirit, sordid spirit and the thief, and then restless spirit with swine stampede and reserve, and just going for that. See if that was going to be better. This was very loosely based on, I mean, I guess it's actually pretty close to the defense that Jeremy had in his kind of like turbo impartial judgment deck that he won one or two state tournaments with, I think, where he was just making a bunch of tokens with heavenly host tokens and follower tokens, and then getting a big impartial judgment very early in the game, just a whole bunch of setup, and then some empty tomb stuff, and hand control combo kind of thing. And that's what John played, or John early. He used that list in the Minnesota State tournament, and I think he won with it. Did Joe win? I don't know. I know I didn't win, so that was where I was struggling to get off the house divided, and so that defense was fairly compact. I believe it was just these 6 evil characters, and I think he only had 3 enhancements. Maybe he didn't run mask or something like that, but or maybe hypocrisy. I don't know. But this is what I ended up with. I guess these 6 plus I think condemned thief, maybe Judas, probably Zacchaeus as well. I don't know, but yeah, just a fairly compact demon thieves defense, and I think that's just the way that they work best in Type 1, especially in this particular build with the Nazareth and all that. So that was the direction that I ended up going for Type 1. I like the way that the deck turned out. I think if I were to change anything, it'd probably just be like refining the reserve a little bit. It's like I was kind of mentioning before that I really didn't use the reserve all that much, and that's sort of the goal, because you want your Nazareth to be down and just not really working with the reserve at all, and just reserve is kind of stuff to deal with your opponent's counters to Nazareth or things like that. And so maybe it would have made sense to try to get like a his sacrifice in here. Although the only ways I have really to get it out would be New Covenant, which means I have to wait another turn to actually activate it. So I don't know. I think there are probably ways that I could better utilize the reserve. He's like burning up the chaff. I thought would be nice just to have as an option to take out a 3 woes or something in territory off of a Star of Bethlehem use of getting activating star abilities. Teaching in parables is just good. As long as I have Repentant Thief or Zacchaeus and can play them as good, then I can play Teaching in parables after grabbing it with New Covenant, negate their hand protection or something like that, which also could turn my Nazareth back on or something. Obviously, I'd have to have some other way to get through it to get Teaching in parables out of reserve, but maybe I can negate their hand protection for the turn and then put down my Nazareth. So that would actually go through, things like that. But neither of these came out in any of my games, I don't think. And I believe that the rest of them came out very few times. And I think I got the Restless Spirit Swine Stampede out once, maybe twice, and I think it only worked once. Otherwise, I mean, it's kind of a telegraphed play, but sometimes your opponent might not be able to deal with it, and that was kind of what I was banking on, at least for the few times where it actually worked out. So yeah, I think that was the main thing. The other thing would probably be switching the Lost Souls a little bit. I went with the N to Unity to get Defiled in here, and I think I don't remember what I was thinking of switching out, but getting Undesirables in here would definitely be good as just another Lost Soul that they have to deal with. Just because I am in that N to Unity, but it was hard. Like I was trying to get it in the night before, and just like it was hard to justify the slot, especially if I want to imitate Lawless, just so I can keep getting value through Nazareth and harvest to generate Lost Souls, because if Nazareth is down and your opponent isn't drawing Lost Souls, then getting them out is going to be difficult. I'm not running Hopper. So there were just a number of other options or things that I wanted over Undesirables, just things that I thought were going to be more impactful to the game. weren't just going to be, Son of God or negate neutral bait. So I don't know, that might be something that I would play around with. Maybe just I would get rid of the New Testament unity altogether, but I like the imitate lawless play through Nazareth. It's definitely the way to go in Type 2, from what I could tell, but maybe putting stuff like Distressed and some of the other Old Testament Lost Soul staples in here would be the way to go. So those are some things that I would potentially change. And on that note, this deck is going to be available soon-ish, maybe. It's going to be available at some point, probably soon, over on Your Turn Games, because Andy is planning to kind of revamp the champion decks, or kind of renew what they are as they are, I guess. So over here on Your Turn Games, you can go and look at champion decks. I'll put a link to it once the decks are actually updated, because currently these are still the 2021 decks. So it's definitely been a while since these have been updated. But Andy is going to have those, and then also the plan is to have some other champion decks in there that are going to be kind of upgraded versions of contender decks that are built from Israel's Inheritance, which will be coming out in the hopefully not too distant future. Part of that is on me, so if it's been a while and those still aren't done, don't blame Andy. You can probably blame me, and or the other builders of those decks, which is mostly just myself and Derek Tirado, previous owner of Your Turn Games, who is also quite busy these days. So that is just a little info about Your Turn Games. The versions of all the cards in the deck, Your Turn Games is a sponsor of this channel, by the way, so you should go and support them. You can buy your Israel's Inheritance supplies from them, because those are going to be available very soon. Perhaps they are already by the release of this video, because I know that Andy has confirmed that he received his delivery, or his shipment from Cactus Games. But one thing to know, that this deck will not be as it appears here, with all of the kind of fancier, or alternate border versions of cards and all that kind of stuff, like Ultra Rare plus Gabriel, Ultra Rare plus the Cross, like alternate border Cloud of Witnesses and Revelation of John cards. Andy will be using the cheapest version of all of these cards, so it's not going to be the most fancy, I guess, but it will definitely have the same function. And there will also be a version available without Second Coming and Three Woes, because you can purchase those separately through the fundraiser. So if you don't want to spend the money to get the alternate border Three Woes and Second Coming, or I guess even the regular border ones, which are fairly expensive, you can get everything else from the deck separately, and then purchase those from the fundraiser, or you can substitute, New Jerusalem and some other dominant in place of Three Woes that you have available to you. So there are definitely some budget options for the deck. And overall, I haven't actually done the math yet, so I don't know what it's going to come out to be, and I don't know if Andy's planning to do any sort of discount on it, so I'm not going to make any guarantees about that. But this deck is actually, I would say, relatively budget friendly. I've got one, two, like outside of maybe dominance, there's the two ultra rares, and then just lots of commons, and a few rares from GOC is kind of the majority of the deck. So it's I would say not too bad for a nationals level deck. There definitely have been some that are more expensive in in the past, I would say. So I think that this is, even if you buy a box of GOC, like you're probably going to get a good chunk of the deck. So I think that you could try to piece it together if you want. You could buy the whole thing. Just making you aware of the options that will be available soon. So check the link in the description if you want to head on over to Your Turn Games and get this or anything else. The other top decks will also be available. I believe he's doing the top 4. I don't want to say that for sure. But since the top 2 decks were pretty much the same, I believe he reached out to Jeremy as well to get the 4th place deck list, which also very good competitive deck. So I think that will be cool for, just another way that people can find a competitive deck. It's going to be a little bit outdated because, obviously no Israel's inheritance for that, the meta that it was built for. But it's definitely still going to be a solid option. And if you're just looking to compete at a high level and you've got the means to do it, then you can pick up the deck and start running with it. So hopefully the information that I've given you in this video has given you a little bit of insight into how to best operate the deck, or at least some of the things that I would do. I guess I didn't really explain much of the strategy, but you can kind of piece things together. Get Nazareth out early and just start pressuring the opponent, pressing that advantage. So anyways, that is everything for the Type 1 category. Next up is Sealed Deck, which, as I mentioned before, I did happen to take first with that one, and actually it was it felt even better because it was Brian who took the belt from me, took it away, and it was me who was able to take away the 2-3 years in a row of Brian winning booster and sealed at nationals. So that felt pretty good. I was able to beat Brian in the final round of sealed deck, and that was what led to the win for me. So that was good. There was the shady, well, not really shady, but like the risky and just poor decision on my part of not. It was a mistake really of just not banding in the soul gen hero on my last attack when I needed to, in order to have the lost soul to rescue with my son of God to get number 5. And I gave Brian another opportunity to rescue and potentially find his son of God as well. And fortunately, even though he did rescue, he did not find his son of God. He did also not draw a lost soul though, so it just had to go to my turn. I had to attack with the hero to play a lost soul from his deck, and then I could play it. But I gave him that kind of one final opportunity by mistake. It was certainly not intentional, and if he had pulled it off, then he would have gotten it, and I would have been pretty sad. But I was able to get my first sealed deck title, so booster draft, we're coming for you again next year, probably, unless Type 2 is like too fun. I don't know. We'll see how it all works out in nationals. But just last year I played booster draft at nationals, and I was just kind of sad I missed out on Type 2, so that's why I had to go back to it this year. And after another win, maybe that'll carry me for 2 years, and I can try again at booster. But I don't know. I haven't gotten my hopes up super high for booster draft, but we'll see. So as far as sealed deck, I feel like I didn't really open any bombs per se. No, like ultra rares or like crazy good rares or whatever that were just going to be very effective or powerful in a sealed deck environment. But I did open like a kind of wide or a large-ish number of just cards that are stronger than the average starter deck card. And so I think that's sort of what pushed my deck to the level of being able to compete well, just to be just a little bit stronger than most decks and kind of press that advantage. I was going to go through my Type 1 games, kind of describing how they went. So basically, I'll just go through it very quickly. First round was against Stephen Coates. Um, the main thing that I take away from that game was that Condemned Thief is just a boss. He had a lot of resources to be able to get through for the rescue on turn one. He had like just enough to be able to withstand my block and kind of taking of resources with plunderers and Condemned Thief. But just the turns after that, like Condemned Thief was just able to kind of roll through and um, just kind of carry my defense, and then my offense was just kind of able to push through. Eventually, the next two rounds were against Jay Chambers and then Josh Botratz, which are two difficult opponents back to back, and I managed to beat both of them 5-4, and I don't know that I necessarily deserved either of those wins, just because against Josh, I think it was Josh first and then Jay. I think I maybe said those the other way around, but um, like Josh, plug your ears if you don't want to hear, but made a misplay of on his last rescue, coming in with a way to generate enough lost souls for him to win. Except one of the ways that he generated a lost soul was using Ends of the Earth on himself, bringing out lost souls, or the lost soul, or maybe it was Ends of the Earth on. No, I think it was on himself. He was digging for some stuff. He pulled out the lost soul to make a token. He also found his dominance. He played them on my other two lost souls, left the token there, and I had no way of stopping his attack, but I did have Son of God in hand to negate his lost soul, to fizzle the token, so he did not, or was not able to get that rescue, and I was then able to, on my turn, rescue, get Second Coming to play Son of God again, and that put me at 5. Jay, the game with him was uh, almost similar in kind of how it was working out. He was just a step ahead throughout most of the game, and then just kind of on the last turn he attacked incorrectly. Just didn't really. I was very starved of defensive resources. We had some pretty good back and forth battles early in the game where I just had to use a lot, and uh, basically I think he kind of just rolled the dice on what I might have, and what I had was the right option. I think there were, he realized afterwards that there was just a like straight up better option for him that I think would have like all but guaranteed that he got it. Um, but yeah, it just worked out where I was able to get that block, and that was the one I needed in order to then go in and get the win 5-4. So that was setting me up to then go and play Luke Marshall, who was also doing very well. He was undefeated at that point, and he got off to a quick start. I had no recourse really. He ended up winning that game 5-2, and that was probably like the most cut and dry game that I played, the whole day, where it was just like, yep, he's just got what he needs to stop me. I don't think there was anything I really could have done differently, and that's just the way that it falls sometimes. Then the round after that, I played against Matt Potratz, Josh's brother, who I hadn't played before. I think we had maybe met once before, but this was my first time playing against him. He was playing a Daniel Demons deck, fairly similar to my Daniel Demons deck that I'd posted and done videos on and all that. So I was fairly familiar with the deck that he was playing. However, that didn't really stop it from being effective against me, and he was able to just hold me off long enough and push through to where I think that if things had fallen just slightly differently, then he would have ended up with the win. But really, it was that last sequence of where I think he played some dominance. He played his mayhem, and turned me off from, or I guess with the attempt to turn me off from my dominance. But I was able to get them back, and then also I don't remember exactly how it went, but basically I like drew what I needed to, or redrew what I needed to off of the mayhem. I made sure that he cut, so I was like, I just don't want to do anything, and then like you not have cut, so that basically just to be like, I wasn't doing anything intentionally to get to this, but basically is just like drawing the right cards where I was like Son of God and Crowd's Choice or something to then go and get Second Coming. And he had the cross that he was ready to activate after he had dropped his dominance. And so I was able, and I hadn't even like drawn a whole lot. So it was really, I'd say enough of it was luck that to where I just kind of drew into the right cards at the right time and was able to win that game 5-4. So even that one, I felt like it was kind of borderline deserved, but it was, yeah, definitely a close one. And now I'm forgetting a little bit. Yeah, so then, okay, yeah, my last two games were then against Zach Gilbaugh and Emmanuel Echevarria, and both of those games were relatively straightforward, just kind of got set up quickly, and especially against Zach, like it just was like things were just not going well for him, and so that was, or I just kind of had the right answers at the right time, and against Emmanuel, I let him rescue his Daniel, and that was the that was the one lost soul he got in that game, and then also the game that we played immediately afterwards for the first round of Top Cut. So if that tells you anything about how the game went, or I guess that kind of summarizes how the game went for him, and I was able to capture his Daniel in both games, and he rescued it both times, so there was no hope of getting it back, and that was kind of how I was able to hold him off then, and get through in those games. And then the second round of Top Cut was when I played against Tim, who had just come off of a win against somebody. He played Josh in the first round. Yeah, Josh Potratz, who was the third seed. Going into Top Cut, I was the second seed, so that's how I ended up playing against Emmanuel, who was the seventh. I played against him, got my butt kicked. That game is on my channel somewhere, so you can go look at the live stream from Nationals, watch that game, and then the third round of Top Cut, I played against Jeremy for third place. Jake and Tim were playing for first, and the game against Jeremy was a little bit back and forth. He got off to a pretty quick start, but I was able to have like one of the best turn twos imaginable, where I was able to get some resources accumulated, and also like set up my Nazareth and all that. He did have Nicanor plus protection down early-ish, but I was still able to poke through just with thieves and the disruptiveness. So that game is maybe live, or maybe live streamed on Rob M's stream. I'm not sure if it actually caught all of it, because he was having some issues like toward the end of his stream, with it catching up, and then I think it crashed at some point, so that game might actually not be available, unfortunately. It was a good game, but you might have to take my word for it. So okay, sorry about that. Now I'm going to go back to sealed deck, talking about the cards that I opened. I was initially paired against a fairly new player who had not played sealed deck before. I think he had learned how to play Redemption within the few days before Nationals, so I was doing my best to kind of use the short time that we had to kind of help I guess to get my deck together, but also to kind of help him understand, okay, like here's what we're doing. You open these packs, you open everything up, and then you have to, you can use the cards from the packs to add to your deck based on the brigades and all that. And we did do a little bit of trading. I tried to be as fair as I could, kind of doing 1-for-1 trades of cards of relatively equal value, and and kind of helped him put together the deck a little bit, but I did want to make sure that my deck was set to go. So, you know, I hopefully he didn't feel at any sort of I certainly wasn't trying to take advantage of his newness or anything, but I was hoping, or I hope he felt that it was a good experience and kind of learning to play the game and how sealed deck worked with opening those packs. And so I believe the cards that I got from him that I ended up using were maybe the definitely the Azahel Swift-Footed, which, like I said, Israel's Inheritance is not yet in Lackey. So there were 2 cards from Israel's Inheritance that I included in here that I don't that you don't see here. But Azahel Swift-Footed, and then Retribution for Sin. Asahel is just he's one of the David's Mighty Men, Purple Warriors. He exchanges for a Purple Warrior in deck, and I think does some other stuff with weapons. I think he can also exchange to reserve. So having him available as basically a second copy of David, or really David's messengers, often would be the kind of go-to, so that I could get to the Soul Gen, or just get to a green hero. With David kind of being one of the stronger heroes in the deck, that was just a great option. And then in reserve, I had some options as well with Abishai, and then also Jonathan the Devoted. I really this was probably the most I had added to a the starter deck for sealed deck. The most I moved things around. I cut 6 total cards from the starter deck, which is indicative of how much I actually had to add and make room for. Ended up with a 51 card deck. So as you can see, I added a good amount of solid cards. Retribution for Sin is a green enhancement. It is a First Samuel enhancement, which was awesome. Negate and shuffle an evil card. So it works as a battle winner or in special initiative. And then if used by a prophet, I think that's the condition, you can take a good dominant from deck. So often it was, battle winner, negate, whatever, end with Retribution for Sin. They ran out of battle winners, so that works, goes through, and I either get my Son of God or my Lord of Armies. That card was just phenomenal. Probably about as close to a bomb as you could get without actually really being a bomb. It's hard for an enhancement to be a bomb for sealed deck, but Unified Kingdom was another one where it's just a very solid enhancement. Enter the battle, band up to 3 OT human heroes, which means you can band your opponent's offense as well, and cannot be negated if used by David. So obviously that works well with David there. So yeah, I guess I was talking about the trading before I kind of got sidetracked. I think Azahel and I want to say Repentance were maybe the 2 cards that and I think Withered Plant were the cards that I traded from my opponent, and the rest of them were just cards that I opened on my own. Maybe Repentance I did open that. It's hard to remember, but Eternal Judgment, Forest Fire. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was Forest Fire, not Repentance. So I traded for the Forest Fire, Withered Plant, and the Asahel. And I was able to get, with King Lemuel. Ezekiel was okay. I was kind of thinking with Forest Fire and Repentance, I might as well have some reusability, and then I ended up putting Seraph in there because of that. That was kind of the 51st card that I was waffling on, right before handing my deck to the judge for deck check. I ended up including it, and probably shouldn't have. I never attacked with it, but I did utilize it once with King Lemuel, switching it with an OT Purple enhancement in my discard pile. So there is that, but could have been something else. So yeah, those were pretty good. They're just generally slightly better than most of the alternatives or most of the other starter deck abilities or cards. Withered Plant was awesome, especially in the mirror match where my opponent had green prophets and I could actually play this a couple of times. There was one game where I played it twice, both against green profits, and so I think I ended the game with it in my hand after having been able to win 2 battles with it. Better to Be Slaves was also fantastic. Battle winner, a little bit of card advantage, and also potentially CBP. Often used it to take out characters and territories. So if I'm able to take the heroes and I think it's going to go through, then I could do that. But otherwise, just playing it, taking their defense, and then drawing some cards and just giving up that lost soul, or maybe playing something else. Yeah, definitely a great play there. If you're not familiar with Seal Deck with the Israel's Deliverance starter decks, I definitely recommend moving the Covenants or the Covenant and Curse into the main deck. They're just some of the best cards in the offense and defense, and so having them available, not having to go to reserve, is probably the most likely the best way to utilize them. Similarly, Loyalty to David, or the I think Water from the Rock is the L deck equivalent. Just move them into the main deck. You can switch other cards into reserve, like I ended up putting Council for the King, You'll Be Well, and David's Music in reserve, and some of the other stuff. So that is pretty much everything with the sealed deck. I think all there really is to mention. I'm not going to go through all of my games for that, just because, for one, I'm not going to remember them quite as well based on just seeing who I played. I guess I could go through who I played. I can go through that. I'm just going to pull up the spreadsheet here. So Isaac Reynolds is my first round opponent. Cooper Kanoy, or is it just Noy? Sorry, Cooper, not sure on your last name there, but Cooper, I think was a solid player. Like, he had a good grasp of the how to play the game, but there are just some strategies that I think he hadn't quite picked up on yet, especially with the starter decks where or in sealed deck, like, it was a mirror match, and so we were you want to ban to your opponent's stuff, or like utilize your opponent's stuff as well. If you're banning to up to 3 Egyptians, prioritize banning to your opponents, because if your opponent's going to have a way to deal with it, then you want to them to take out their own characters instead of yours. So it's just kind of a resource battle, and I think he hadn't quite gotten to that aspect of the strategy yet. So I actually told him that after the game. So if you played Cooper later in the tournament and he did that against you, well, I'm sorry. Then I played against Sean Murphy. Had a really good game against Sean. Cooper was actually the only one to, I should mention, he was the only one to not let me get to a full win. We had a very defensive game. It was a lot of that mirror match and like using each other's resources and kind of stuff that, just kept us both very defensive, and I ended up winning that one 3-1. I beat Sean in a fairly, game just really went in my favor. That was a 5-0 game. Then I played Josh Potratz. We had an interesting back and forth. He had a Holy of Holies, I think, that he was utilizing to basically keep me from generating lost souls, but I just was able to get some other slow advantage, and was able to hold him off from rescuing as well. And so just kind of by the time the lost souls did come out, I had a little bit of the card advantage that just kind of put the game into my favor. Ended up winning that one 5-3. Very similar with the game against Chris Fatchman in round 5, where he had a Nazareth that was stopping me from generating souls from his deck, but I was able to do more drawing and just resource accumulation. And his big hitters, like he had an Amariah, he had a Mordecai, and a Sisera, and the L deck to go with it. And they did not come out until it was just a little bit too late. Or, in the case of Sisera, I was able to have an answer for him, or kind of, was able to attack with him in mind, I guess, once he had gotten the first block off. Then I played against Zach. That was another 5-0 win, where it was just the cards did not come up right for Zach. I just had the block, I just had the right cards for every situation, it seemed like. Um, so that was the big one, or the big deciding factor for that game. And then the last game, round 7, was against Brian, as I mentioned, and that was a close 5-4 win that I almost threw away. Fortunately, that was enough for to get me into first place. And I think, I guess, so if I had lost to Brian, then I think I would have ended up in second place, with Brian taking first, if he had gotten a full win. Um, so it would have taken the full win to do it. But yeah, that was a sealed deck lineup. How it went, I guess I did kind of remember some of the stuff to give at least a little bit of an overview. But yeah, that was a summary of the national tournament, or at least the gameplay from it. My experience with that. Airbnb is a lot of fun. The Nationals fantasy draft was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to doing that again in the future, and being able to adapt that and whatnot with the threshing floor and doing our kind of collaboration on that. That was a good time. So hopefully you guys enjoy that as well. And if you have any suggestions for it, I'm sure John would be interested to hear them. And I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up. Hopefully I remember how to upload YouTube videos and all that and edit since it's been a little while. No, we're gonna get back into our regularly scheduled programming, with some Thursday videos, hopefully some gameplay, some Lackey Grand Prix stuff coming out with new Israel's Inheritance. I'm excited for that. Hopefully you guys are too. And with all that said, thanks for watching, and catch you next time.